because you're not listening to the program?
Seriously?
Seriously. Well, they also don't have the time listening to this either. Thanks everybody who found it. Because we're not listening to the pocket program, but we're listening to the main program.
Okay.
You are on the
And I
phone.
apologize for not getting a hold of you earlier. I asked them if they were going to pass my contact information to you.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I got like a big slideshow thing. I didn't want to monopolize the program.
Oh, okay then.
Well, then, do you want to do the slideshow?
You know, why don't you ask people why they take it? And if
Okay.
if your slideshow is good.
Well, because you've got some experiences I haven't had. Like you've done Amazon, right? Yes, yeah, Amazon writing experience. Well, so I guess we should ask people. Hello.
Hello.
Is your mic live? My mic's live.
My mic's not.
Do I need a mic for really small?
That's pretty big. I think we're loud people. Hello. I'm Norman Rafferty. I work for Sanguine Games. We publish stuff. And what alias are you using?
I'm Maggie. I work for myself. I publish
Do it yourself.
Well, that's what we're about. We're about doing it yourself. That's DIY. But yeah, you've published how many books now? So hard to keep track. It's got to be at least you.
30, 40?
30 or 40 self-published novels.
Right.
Full novels, not short stories or anything. Wow. I didn't know it was that many.
I didn't either, apparently.
There we go. So 30 or 40 self-published novels, and I work for Sanguine Games, where we published. We are the double ace of Kickstarter. We've had 14 successful crowdfundings. Woo! Working on the 15th one. So yeah, actually that's a really good question. So I know we're listed in the writing track. My panel is mostly composed about self-publishing anything. If you wanted to write something, make a video game, because we've done that. Make a box game to sell people, because we've done that, or a board game. But so are you folks here for writing? Like who's here to learn how to? Some people, okay. Is anybody here because they want to make a game, like a box game? Okay. Does someone want to make a t-shirt? I also have 5 hands go up. Why is everyone else here? Did you hear there would be ice cream? You just wanted to meet us? I mean,
Is there ice cream?
there is no ice cream.
No, and I left the pot home.
Yeah, no. Okay. Because most of what I was going to talk about was responsible business development. So I did. What was your outline going to be about?
I don't do outlines. I
just
do
write.
ad hoc. I do ad hoc.
Well, so 30 books. Okay. Most people have trouble like finishing their first one, right? Because it's like, I got to do my planning. I don't know how to finish this. Anyone have that problem? Be honest. It's okay. We're all friends. No shame. Okay. So how did you get 30 novels done?
One word at a time? Well, the publishing thing is different, though. What? Go ahead.
You write like I do.
Which is what? One word at a time?
Yeah, it's like Alyssa's like, I have this idea. Let me just start writing this. How did 300 pages go by? Why is it done?
Oh, well.
So what's the difference between writing the all right? So writing 30 novels is pretty impressive. What about publishing 30 novels?
Well, you do it the first 5 times, and then it's easy after that, right?
So by publish, you're self-published, right?
Right.
All right. So that means that you have to handle all the marketing, all the distribution. You have to get it out to different markets. What made you decide to do that instead of
Instead of
pitching it to like Tor?
I did pitch it to them, and I had horrible experiences with them, so I moved on.
You decided to publish it yourself.
Yes.
Now, when you say self-publish it, if I wanted to get one of your novels, how would I do that?
You would buy it at a bookstore.
So you published the book yourself, and somehow it got into bookstores. How did you do that?
No. You order it. Like you walk into the bookstore and you say, "This isn't on your shelves. Like 90% of the books you offer. Can you get it for me?" And they say yes, and then they order it and it arrives.
All right. So now to do that, have you set up your own ISBN numbers
No, I borrowed them from my self-publisher.
from your self-publisher?
Yeah.
Who's that?
The print one is CreateSpace.
Okay. So you signed up with Amazon. Now Amazon has a service called CreateSpace that helps you publish your books.
Right.
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 So you're with the Amazon, and you're on CreateSpace. Do you also do your books digitally?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's where the money is.
Right. That is in fact where the money is, and I've got that in my outline, so I'd love to talk about that.
Well, if you want to do your outline, and then we can riff off it, I guess.
I think though, because it must be really hard like, doing all the stuff yourself, right?
No.
No, really, it's just
No.
it just comes naturally.
Yep. Well, no, it's
Don't you
not-
ever complain about your boss?
No, I do complain about my boss all the time, but that's exactly it. It's like a job. You walk into a job, you sit down, you work, you vetch about it, and some of it is tedious and some of it is annoying, but you keep doing it.
Right, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up was sometimes it's tedious, and I think you all have great ideas, even you, especially you. Well, okay, your ideas are. All of you have great ideas, but one of the hardest things about actually self-publishing, you probably have heard some people say, I've got a great idea, but I haven't done planning it yet. I haven't figured out how long the sidereal day of this planet is yet. Is it going to be 24 hours, 28 hours? People spend a lot of time planning because the creative part is usually the fun part. Making the stuff up and making the stories is usually the fun part. But when it comes to self-publishing, we're going to have to go ahead and put on some of our boss hats here, and we're going to have to go ahead and do the hard work of proofreading the book, formatting it exactly the way Amazon wants it, which is not EPUB, it's like what, Mobi?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's fun.
It's not hard. It's not bad.
It's
not bad.
See, I've had trouble with it. but these are like little things you have to work through because you've got the technical skills to be able to set up a Mobi, get it printed. You also set up your account with Amazon. Are you incorporated, or are you just doing it with your personal Social Security number?
No, I have a business license.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about getting a business license, which varies from state to state. I'm in Ohio. You're in
Florida.
Right. So I'm guessing there's differences. Did you have to, when you got a Florida license, did you have to put your name in the newspaper? Yeah, see, in Florida, you have to put your name in the newspaper for 2 weeks. In Ohio, you just buy a license and you've got one. I don't know why we're all not in Ohio, or Delaware, which is but just a little bit. So really, I just wanted to advise everybody to be smart. Okay, I guess that's it, right?
What?
Just be smart.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on.
I apologize, I'm not going to do a lot of this, but one of the big things is it's very difficult. I want to make sure that we are very good cheerleaders here. If you want to make something, the most important thing is like you decided you were going to, you wrote a whole novel series, right? Because the 30 isn't just the Space Marines, it's more stuff than that. But I remember you started with a bunch of short stories and eventually you got to a larger form.
No, I started with novels and went to short stories.
Started with novels and went to short stories, okay.
Briefly, because I didn't like them. Not my thing.
So one of the things I want to encourage folks is if you want to make a thing, know what the thing is you want to make. If you want to make a novel or you want to make a game, be specific. Be very specific on what you want. Sometimes when I meet writers, they're telling me they want to write a big series of, I've got this whole 12 novel series plan, you have the whole eponym cycle and all this kind of stuff. I mean, did you set a word count and said, okay, look, when I'm done, this is my novel?
I do now.
Yeah, you do now.
Yeah, I do now.
Which brings us to another thing, measurable. Know when you're done. I've met a lot of people who are constantly working on their books and they don't know exactly, when they're finished, or they want to, like I said, write this big epic. Now, if you were just on the last panel, they talk about writing a big epic struggle. Just pick an endpoint. NaNoWriMo is really good for that. Does people know what NaNoWriMo is? They may not know what that is. That's the novel writing month. They just say, write 50,000 words and then stop. Now we know we're done. One other thing I also want to emphasize is it should be something you can actually do. Okay? I mean, well, that sounds a little weird, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the Kickstarters that bit off a little more than they could chew. Like, I'm going to make a JRPG. It's going to have 80 hours of voice acting in it. And I was like, can you do 80 hours of it? If you can't do the thing yourself, you can hire other freelancers to do it. Now, you're a triple threat, right? Because you write the book, edit the book, and illustrate the book, right?
Yeah, but I hire a lot of people.
Right. So anything you can't do or you think someone else can do better, you hire someone else.
Yes.
Which also brings us to another thing about if you're hiring other people, make sure you're responsible about it. We'll talk a little bit about contracts because I don't know, have you ever contracted somebody
All the time.
and it didn't kind of show up on time?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of horror stories about that. And then, of course, the thing I have to emphasize the most when making sure something gets done, have a deadline. Make sure there's some sort of timetable where you're actually done. If you're going to do a crowdfunding, you're required by law to have one. Otherwise, it's not good. It's invalid. So they're going to ask you for a delivery time of when you're actually going to be done with it. And that way, even if you miss your deadline, at least you had some idea, because if anyone remembers Duke Nukem Forever, it's not done until it's done. Now we're on Valve time. Okay. So that was pretty. Now, have you crowdfunded any of your books? I think you just sort of
13, 14?
13, 14
So
books?
something like that, yeah.
Because I remember the Space Marines, so that's
Yeah.
what I remember the most. But you've crowdfunded some of your books, right?
Like I've run 14 of them.
14 of them. Wow, so another double A's. Hey,
Yeah.
I didn't know you. Brag about those.
All successful. Yeah,
All successful.
all successful.
Well, I want to talk about that, but yeah, but all of them too. But when you said your crowdfunding goals, you said them pretty modest, right? Now,
Yes.
why did you turn to crowdfunding when you obviously were capable of writing books?
What does the writing books have to do with the crowdfunding? That's like a way of getting money as opposed to something you're doing. It's
So why did you crowdfund?
because I didn't want to pay the expenses out of my own pocket for
Right.
things that I was contracting out for. I don't do my own book layout. I don't do all of my own covers. I don't do my own narration for audiobooks. I don't, there's a lot of stuff I don't do that I pay other people to do, so.
Right, perfect, that's a big point. Before we had this sort of thing, if you wanted to pay all that in advance, and you had to do that for a book that you weren't even sure how many people wanted.
Yes.
So you had to guess if anybody actually wanted your thing. So the thing I like to emphasize about crowdfunding is crowdfunding doesn't just get you the money for your thing, it also tells you if people actually want your thing. Because I've had crowdfundings that did not meet their goal, and to that I say, hooray, I didn't make something that a bunch of people didn't want.
That's a good attitude.
Yeah, that's what I worry about, because some people get really depressed, and there's actually some toxic thinking when it comes to crowdfunding that I'm going to talk about, where some people think, like, maybe I should ask for less money than I need, because if I ask for less money, if I ask for less money, I'll be more likely to get it. Yeah, but if you ask for less money, and that's less money than you need, then you didn't get all the money that you needed. So, and then you can make things, yeah. I'm going to skip over. Yeah, this is the one. This is the quote I want to talk about, where there's somebody who said this. What is this quote up here? Because I want to quote this. Yeah, if you ask for too much money up front because of the rules of Kickstarter, it's very, very hard to meet the complete development budget. There's a technical name for this. It's called a lie. There is no rule in any crowdfunding anywhere that says you ask for less money than you need. This is a toxic, bad statement, and I'm very upset that it made the press. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so.
Are you all awake?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are you awake?
Yes, okay, good.
Okay.
Just very attentive.
Okay, good.
If you don't get the money that you wanted, that means your product would flop?
No, and I want to talk about that in a moment, because for example, if you're going to lay out a book, okay, so you know about how many pages your book's going to be, so you know how much you're going to pay your editor for.
Right.
And you get cover art, so you're commissioning the cover art.
Right.
So you have some idea how much those fees are going to be.
Yes.
Can I ask how much those, you've done crowdfunding, so how much do you usually ask for?
I usually ask for, what is it, 800?
Yeah, so $800. That
Yeah.
sounds reasonable to pay for the cover artist, and you've got a working relationship with people, so you can ask for $800.
Right.
Now, if you didn't get $800, would you still do the book?
Yes.
Just not as nice?
Just not as soon, probably.
The problem is, okay, so I have a working process.
Mm-hmm.
The working process is the ebook goes out first.
Yep.
The ebook is where 75% of the revenue is, and every other edition, audio, print, or whatever, will never make as much money as the ebook does. So I only do the print or the audio if I can have someone help with the expenses, and if they help partially or they don't help at all, it doesn't matter because the ebook is still earning.
Are you sure you haven't seen my slide? You're predicting every slide before I show it.
Sorry.
No, sorry. but I wouldn't say about 70%, I know you said about 75% of your revenue, but has anyone here ever worked retail and heard the 80-20 rule before?
Yes.
Yeah, what's the 80-20 rule?
Don't remember. I just
Don't remember?
hearing about it.
Anyone remember what the 80-20 rule is?
3% of the work brings in 80% of the revenue.
Yeah, 20%, right. So when it comes to sort of crowdfunding, it's like you're saying, like, well, you do the ebook, and that is going to probably be most of the revenue. And the ebook is mostly just words formatted in the Mobi format.
Right.
Okay, so that was probably the easy part. But you're generating the revenue because you're thinking, look, I have this really nice product. I'd really like to do a really nice deluxe print book.
Yeah.
with a nice
extra
fancy
editions.
cover?
Yeah.
And you expect that probably 80% of the people were just going to go ahead and read the book digitally.
Yes.
But you want to make something really nice for the other 20% of the people.
Yes.
Yeah, so the 80-20 rule is a little rough. I mean, like you said, 75-25 for you. But this is a good ballpark because something else that I like to point out that with crowdfunding, now I do much larger projects where I do like these boxed and video games. And we're kind of making the tacit assumption that when we're asking for some of our money, sometimes we might ask for a little more ambitious or more money to do a grander project, because we're hoping that everybody who prepays for our product is our hardcore 20%, and we're hoping that we can sell another 4 times as much over the long term. Now, you're doing a single book and selling that to people. I'm running a larger business where we're making role-playing games and box games. I'm assuming that if I can crowdfund at least 1,000 box games, there's probably another secondary retail market for me over the next 2 or 3 years to move another 4,000. So yeah, you're starting off with, you already have the demand and you're making something premium, whereas I'm starting off with the idea that I'm starting with a small market and over my lifetime. But something else that's important here is we're both choosing a timetable here. Like when you put your ebook out there and you kind of wait until you get enough sales to decide if it's going to get the Lux treatment, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so you've got a measurable goal.
Yes.
Whereas I'm sort of doing a timetabled goal where my goal is, like I said, my goal is smart. I want to, I'd like to sell a certain number of games. I don't know how many, but I'd like to sell them over 3 years. If I can get the funding for the first 1,000, I expect to sell 4,000, so I expect 5,000. Once again, our goals are specific, measurable, and timetable.
Because I like money and I don't like not having money.
Yes, money is great. Money goes towards the right. Some of these are a little redundant, so I'm going to skip past all of them. Now, if some of you are going ahead and making stuff, now you're making ebooks.
I'm making books.
You're making books. So when you make the ebooks, you have to set those up and get those set up and made. But making more ebooks doesn't cost you any money, right?
No.
Now, when
Time. Costs time, which is money.
which is money.
Right.
But when you do your printed books, do you do a mass printing and then store them somewhere?
Good Lord, no.
Okay. So you're doing print on demand.
Yes.
Okay. So Maggie doesn't have any per unit costs. They've got fixed costs where you have to pay to set everything up. You have to pay the art, the editing, and that kind of stuff. But once it's set up and you've paid that flat amount of money, you just push the book out there, and if you sell 1 unit or you sell 100,000 units, that doesn't add any costs to you.
Right.
Is anybody here back to Kickstarter? Is anybody here back one of those really successful Kickstarters that say, oh my God, we got all this stuff, I don't know where to put it? Okay, some of you are talking about that, right. That's a case of when you have a problem with per unit costs. Like for example, if I made a crowdfunding and I said, we're gonna make 1,000 games, and by some miracle we get mentioned on some website or whatever, and we get 100,000 orders, I might have the problem where merely storing my 100,000 physical products costs me money because I have to warehouse them somewhere, I have to print them and ship them using trucks. I can't just store this stuff in my garage, there's actually laws against that. I have per unit costs. These are costs I have to worry about per the units that I sell. Because we've got different issues here.
Well, and I priced out a stuffed animal,
Okay, there we go.
which had the same issues. And I was like, there's no way. I'm not having 300 stuffed animals in my house that I'm gonna have to ship to separate,
Not ship them, they have to be insured,
It was
and there can even be laws against you storing that stuff on commercial property.
It was not
Right.
my thing.
So if you want to make a physical, most of you are probably considering writing something or doing with digital. We'll talk a little about digital distribution, but those are costs you have to worry about, and they can sneak up on you. Okay, so really what we're looking at here is if you want to budget for your project to crowdfund it, you have to figure out how much it's going to cost you to set it up, and then we're going to have to figure out how much it costs per the number of units you're going to make, and that's going to be your budget.
Well, and I'm a rare person because I believe that you should make a profit off your crowdfunding.
Yep, in fact, thank you for bringing that up. I have the little less than or equal to. We're going to budget a little extra because you're going to want to plan to make some more money. Not just for the profit, but also for the disasters. Do I want to ask if any disasters have happened to you? You haven't had a lot of disasters, have you?
The most recent Kickstarter had a bit of a disaster
Uh-oh.
going on there.
Did it? No,
But
well,
with
no,
everyone's
it's
books
just,
kept getting damaged
No,
in the
it's just
packages.
the post office kept losing things or shredding them, and they shredded one package, and it had 3 books in it, and one fell out, and then they resealed the package and moved it on without the extra book.
So yeah, you had physical rewards that had trouble getting shipped to people, so you had to reship them. And I've had a problem. I don't know what it is about. Maybe 2-3% of the people say they never got my stuff. I can ship them tracked with UPS numbers. They just if you ship through the post office and it's not late until 30 days, and some of my stuff just disappears into the ether. Have to have a little extra money to budget for this, but
And I've had contractors flake out on me, which was bad.
which you also have to budget for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have people here planning on crowdfunding anything. Some of you planning on crowdfunding stuff. I got a lot of slides here on crowdfunding, but I might skip some of them because we want to talk about
Something else.
producing them. Well, also, like, people ask me, like, do you need a lot of Kickstarter rewards? Like, do you have a lot of crazy rewards, like I'll write your character in the book and that kind of stuff?
Do I? Sometimes,
Sometimes.
but not often. No.
Don't feel like you have to have them. You've had 14 successful Kickstarters, and you don't do that a lot.
No.
And I've had 14 successful Kickstarters. In fact, Kickstarter just started this thing called Quickstarter.
Quickstarter. I
Quickstarter.
didn't know about that.
Well, they were sending promotions about it. Quickstarter was, you have to ask for like $1,000 and you only have 1 reward.
Oh, cool.
And they'll promote you on Quickstarter, which
That's
is just,
neat.
I'm writing a book, done, back it or don't. So you don't have to have a lot of this. I've had some luck. Some of you have backed Kickstarters before. Do some of you back with early bird discounts? Have you ever done one of those early birds?
No.
Because they added that. They had this thing recently where you can tell people like there's only 20 people. The first 20 people get a discount, or the first 20 people register in this time frame get a discount. I do some of the larger Kickstarters. I do that, and I think that benefits me a lot because of my physical stuff. But I don't think you should feel like you have to.
No.
Did you have a question? Or?
No, I was saying yes,
Okay.
see most acceptable.
So I apologize if I skip through a lot of this. Now, naturally, when you're planning on doing something, there's basically 3 ways to do it. The big one that most of what we do is electronic distribution. You're working with Amazon CreateSpace, or you're working with any other partners?
And I work with Drafted Digital, which ships to Barnes & Noble, Kobo, the libraries, Scripty, a couple of other places that I'm like, okay, Tolino.
Scripting has legitimate uses?
Yeah,
Okay.
apparently.
Alright.
Apparently. So yeah, they cover everything else.
Okay, so most of what you do is electronic, but every now and then, when you do printing of your books, do you print 1,000 or 2,000 of them and sit on them and wait for a while?
Never.
Do you do this thing where you like wait till people demand it and then print it?
No, I look at the sales numbers, and if the sales numbers say that there's a certain number of people buying the ebook, then there will be a certain number buying the print edition.
And so how do you set them up for print? Do you wait for people to order from CreateSpace and ship it to them?
No, it's all through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and they handle it.
They handle it.
I don't touch it.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is print on demand.
Yes.
You're part of the Amazon network. I'm part of the Lightning Press and Lulu networks, which are basically when someone orders the book, they print, manufacture the book, and ship it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic because we don't have to pay any money.
No.
You order the book, you pay for it, great. You order 1 or you order 1,000, we have no per unit costs. Doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
The only disadvantage of that is that has much higher margins on it, which means it's a lot more expensive. Like if you order a book that way, you're probably paying $15 to $20, and you're getting like what, a few pennies off each sale?
Oh God, no! It's more like $5.
$5.
$5,
And
$4,
what's your MSRP?
Between 12 and 15.
I'm in the wrong business. Okay,
But they're not color.
But we will talk about that in a little bit. You're making black and white
Yes.
prose books with some illustrations.
Yes.
Whereas if you come to my table, you'll see full color, full featured illustrations on glossy paper. That's a little bit more expensive. Print on demand is way more friendly to the black and white novel market, which is where it's excelling. In the color market, I've got some other issues going on. Also, when we first started, in our old days when we did J-Claw,
Yes.
we did mass printings, which is where we wanted to get a lot of money together and print 1,000, 2,000, or 10,000 of these things and hold them. If you're going to make a boxed game, like does anyone want to make like a cute little box game to sell? Those are definitely going to have to be done mass printing because you can't do those as print on demand. A print-on-demand version would cost like $120. If you could print 1,000 of them, you can get economy of scale, and then it's gonna you can make them down to like $30 or $20 a piece, but you have to order 1,000 or 10,000 of them, so you need 20 or 30 grand. That's why you go to crowdfunding to get that. Mass printing will lower your per unit cost, but you still have a per unit cost, and we're gonna have some other overhead to worry about. So, questions so far? Yeah,
Still awake.
Still awake. All right.
Yes, okay.
No, they're just attention. They can't go. So sometimes when it comes to doing your first product, you have to ask what to do. Now, I don't want to disparage but I would call your product in the category we have here the economy range. Black and white, small book, with nice nice illustrations, but not very expensive because you're talking about your books running the $12 to $15 range.
But I do have audiobooks. Audiobooks are expensive.
Okay. Audiobooks are more, audiobooks, you'd actually have to get a voice actor to do what, 12 to 15 hours at least?
Yes.
Right. So that's
$300 an hour.
now we're into the category known as premium, because if you want somebody who's going to do something like, if you want to do one of those big, beautiful box games you've seen in the hobby stores, or you want to do a big color book, now we're talking about something that's going to be very expensive. Now, when something costs more money, what's going to happen is fewer people are going to buy it. Okay, that sounds a little weird.
No, but it's true.
Right. Sounds a little weird. But what that means is basically what we're shooting for here is if you're, there's going to basically be two middle grounds. Because we talked about the Pareto principle where we said that basically 80% of your business come from 20% of your customers. Okay. You may have noticed that the margin for things are either you're going to get really good, inexpensive $10 to $15 black and white novel books, but when it comes to the box game market, if you've played box games, have you noticed it's almost all the $60, the $80, and the $100 end? They've gone really expensive, and most of the stores have the really expensive stuff. That's because when people are looking for stuff, they're either looking for something that's a good, small impulse buy, and you can sell to lots of people, or you're going for something that it looks really nice, people feel really good about spending money on it, and it's really expensive. Sure, you're going to sell less of them, but the people who get them really like them. If you push too hard for that middle range, if you try to do your beautiful dream, but you're shaving costs to make it cheaper, you're going to lose people. My advice is go hard and go really nice and ask for all the Kickstarter money you need and make it really nice. Or if this is your first project, you've never done something like this before, it's pretty modest, stick to being responsible and reasonable about what you know how to do. Write the novel. I know you know some people who did illustrations.
Yes.
Like who did didn't you illustrate your first book yourself? Because I know you illustrated your books.
I did some of them.
Yeah.
But I did get some illustrators for others. Yeah.
Right, but you knew some illustrators, you paid them some money. Did you crowdfund your first book, or did you? Because I know you published a book without, because you did.
No, I
well, I'm
didn't.
thinking, like, 'cause you did Sofa Wolf and you did the other stuff, right?
No, I did it myself, the first one. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But it was all skills but you did a nice black and white book. My goal was a novel, and you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, that's my advice is, either you're gonna go with something modest and something a lot of people can buy and enjoy,
Right.
or really you're just gonna go expensive. I've seen so many people kill themselves trying to do something a little bit. Now I'm assuming that most of you are creators, right? You've got something really cool you want to create. Does anybody here actually wanted to try and license something? Because I've done licensing.
You mean license somebody else's creation?
Yeah. Well, we did the Albedo game and we did the Usagi
You
game.
didn't do the Albedo game?
Yeah, we did one of the Albedo's games.
Oh, wow.
We did the 3rd edition Albedo and we did the Usagi game. And we did a couple other licenses. But if we're not here to talk about licensing, we don't have to talk about that. So it's probably for the other stuff. Okay. And I think we talked a little bit here about who made this stuff. We mostly create most of the stuff ourselves, but if you need other stuff, you need to hire people.
Yes.
Now, when you hire people, you tell them, hey, you should just do this for free for the exposure, right? That's what you tell people. That was worth it, the expression on your face.
Sorry, no. I pay them actual money.
Yes, you will have to pay your talent actual money.
What?
Please don't tell them to do it for the exposure. They're not going to do it. You must.
Actually, a couple of times have been like, well, here, I'll charge you this, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to charge me twice that because you're not taking it seriously. So.
Yes, in fact, there's one problem. If they're not paying, if you're getting volunteers or people for too little money, you can't necessarily motivate them to put up because this has happened. Some of you are furries and you may have like commissioned somebody, but they said, oh, I couldn't be bothered to do your $20 commission or whatever because it was, I don't make
It
any
was $20.
It was so cheap it wasn't worth doing. Okay, really good freelancer is going to cost you money. That's part of why we're doing a crowdfunding, like you just said.
Right.
I've had the same conversation with artists before. They say, well, sure, I'll charge $50. No, I'm charging you $100, that's what I'm putting on the Kickstarter. Either we get it or we don't, because I'm paying you real money. And also an important thing is, when I do my crowdfundings, I make sure I have some of the stuff already to show.
Yes.
Do you buy the illustration first and show it off in the crowdfunding, or do
Yes.
you? But you also wait. You put the ebook out there and wait to see if there's a demand for it before you just start to give it the Lux treatment.
Well, and then all the Kickstarter before it has built in the Kickstarter, the next one, so that I can put some of that money and roll it forward to the next one.
Oh, long-term plan. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a minute. But you're buying the artwork before you get started, so you have something to show off. A lot more people, the Kickstarter fad is over, and a lot more people are a little worried if you don't have anything worth showing. Just having something like a nice cover art picture or something like that to show people as a teaser, and to get that, you're gonna have to pay people.
Yeah.
In fact, you're legally obligated to pay people, so.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna skip over that. That's Pictures for Sad Children. Does anyone remember that? Someone does, okay. So once again, as we mentioned here, you're also, one thing to worry about, crowdfunding costs. Crowdfunding is gonna cost, like they take like 10% of that off the bat. And then
taxes.
yes, thank you. That's exactly what we're going to say, yes. And then internal revenue takes some of that, although internal revenue usually waits for the take home. So if you spend all of it on the project, you can actually deduct that.
But don't, put it aside.
But unless you have a business manager with a business degree like I do, you're going to have to put some of the money aside because you will have to report this income. They will find you.
Yes.
They have a public record. So you have to budget 10, 20, how much do you budget above, 30%?
25% for the IRS
Okay.
and 10% for
Yeah.
Kickstarter and their,
So yeah, 30 to 35% is probably a good number. So you're going to have to pad this a little bit. My spreadsheets here assume you're padding at 10%, but I've also been discovering after been talking to people that they don't have business managers like I do to deduct the costs. But yes, so when you do your crowdfunding estimate, like we said earlier, you have to figure out what your fixed costs are. We're going to have to figure out how many we're going to make, what the per units are, and then you've got pad that another 10 to 35% for your freaking crowdfunding costs. And we still haven't put in your profit yet.
right.
So,
You make money?
yes, you want to
Yes.
make money.
You must make money.
I didn't think that was gonna happen.
You don't necessarily have to do it to make money, but also when we talked about motivation, because you've done what, 14 of these? Would you have done 14 of these if you weren't making money?
No.
And honestly, you don't have to make a lot of money, like marking up another 5 to 10% for profit, you probably mark it up a little bit more than that. But ask for it. The people who are crowdfunding you want to see you succeed. And the slide that I skipped over was somebody who didn't mark it up and he wasn't making a profit on all this stuff, and he decided to stop doing the business because he lost his motivation. We want you to stay motivated. Mark it up, ask for money.
Well, wait, and ask yourself why you don't think you should be paid. Why shouldn't you not be paid for doing the work? That's part of the profit money, is your salary.
So I'm doing it for exposure.
Very witty.
Oh, question over here?
So I'm a philosophical kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
So I see it as that there may be motivations rather than money. For example, I know that, for example, you're in a certain political ideology, like communism or something like that. You could write a book. Like, I'm not expecting you to pay for this. Your motivation isn't the money. It's to get the word out of like what you want to spread or something like that.
And that's completely reasonable, especially if you incorporate it as a 501 nonprofit. You might be obligated to that. So you don't necessarily have to ask. I'm assuming most people here are creative artists, but if you're doing this as activism, to ask for that kind of thing, then no. But you still have to budget a little bit extra. But unless if you're incorporated as a 501c3 that you don't have to pay the income tax, that's a totally different discussion.
You really handled that well.
I used to work in nonprofit. We've been doing this for what, 20 years? Okay. One thing I worry about a little bit.
Wait.
Oh, more questions?
How, where'd you
feel about giving away a portion of the books you sell to A, generate interest in it, and B, to thank the people that helped you along the way?
Have you had any luck with giveaways?
Yes. Yes,
I'd
I
like
have.
to hear your stories, because I haven't.
Yes, but I think people don't understand that you have to do the giveaway to the right audience in the right context. So a lot of people are like, okay, I'm gonna put this on my social media, without realizing that most people don't go to social media to shop. They go there to be social and hang out and be entertained for free. So they're not shopping when they go on social media. So if you do it on social media, it doesn't really do much for you. The places that free promotions do well are when you're already captured people who are at the point of buying. So mailing lists that sell books, that's where you want to do promotions like that. And if you give away a free book there, then yes, you will generate a lot of follow-on sales. But I think the mistake a lot of people make is they just spread it around thinking it'll just magically find the audience, and it doesn't really work that way. So
when you say promote mailing lists, it's like when you go out and buy a mailing list of people who buy books online, buy books in genre you're writing in, you say specific information on where you can purchase.
You don't buy it like you're going to buy a spam mailing list. There are promoters who curate basically these big mailing lists for people who are bargain shopping for books. And that is where you want to buy promotions, because those people who sign up for that mailing list want a book in that particular genre.
So do you use a promoter?
Yes.
And who do you use?
BookBub is the best.
BookBub.
BookBub is the best.
You have to have it.
Yeah, there are a bunch of others. BookBub.
So B-O-O-K-B-U-B?
Yes.
Okay.
B-O-O-K.
Yeah, because I have
B-U-B.
I have a slide later when I talk about some of the promotions. I've seen a lot of places who do the backer, well, I'm not just saying backer kit. There's been other ones where they offer to help you with your Kickstarter, and I've read the fine print on those, where they say, we're going to offer you 5% market penetration in internet ads. I gotta be honest with you, if you have a credit card, you can just buy a Google ad.
Yeah.
Google will just sell you ads, and Facebook will sell you ads, and we were getting 5% penetration by just buying Google and Facebook ads.
But you can also buy ads on Amazon.
Yep.
That sometimes works, but you have to work at it. So, if your goal is to make money, not everybody's goal is to make money. Some people want exposure, or they want to be important in a specific fandom, which is fine. That's your goal. The places that you promote free stuff are different than if you're trying to make money off of it.
Did we have a question?
I was just to the original thing of who to give a free copy to. I always assumed it was something like the whole game industry approaching certain YouTubers to give free copies to, because it generates, and I love this word, exposure.
I'm gonna make you very sad.
Do it.
Um,
Make me cry.
No one on YouTube, I mean, maybe with one or two exceptions, they don't play those for free. They get paid.
Yeah.
PewDiePie gets paid. I have paid YouTubers to
Does it work?
yes.
Yes.
It does work because the
You're
YouTube.
thinking premium top level though, but there are people who will just play, like mid-tier people will play with smaller audiences.
You may get some random, but you may get some random people who only have 100 viewers to do it,
Yeah.
but
They only have 100 viewers.
They only have 100.
they only have 100, and I could go into a huge spiel about gaming journalism, because I've been doing this for 20 years. A lot of those guys are paid.
Yeah.
Like the really big ones are paid. And also, you can offer them, I've offered free copies, and most of my free copies just get turned down. There's a market for those folks to get paid. Really, free promo, I would look into this BookBub, and I would look into a couple other ones. That sounds really good. The target marketing is a little more important, because I love you guys, but you're nobody. Okay, we haven't heard much from you. I mean, we're small fries. So, it's not, we're not announcing like a new Neil Stephenson book is out and everybody's going to rush to go get it. So you're going to have a niche audience. In fact, most of you are probably writing something that appeals to a certain crowd. So that actually kind of brings me to this thing where I run into a lot of people who have really ridiculous sales expectations. Like, remember how I said that we need responsible, and we also need sort of timely development? Remember earlier when I was saying I was expecting to sell my stuff over 3 years? And now you put the ebook out there and you wait till it gets a certain amount, but then you put your print, so you have no per unit costs. So you don't necessarily, you do the Kickstarter, if you get the money, you ask for all of it up front, and then you wait for it to sell.
Yes.
Okay, so you're gold, you're very
And
responsible.
I'll say that. I set up my business that way on purpose, because I used to have per unit costs for other things, and I'm like, no, not doing that anymore. It's just too hard, so.
Right. Now, remember I mentioned that I was expecting a certain return. I was putting this game, have you heard of this game when the water tastes like wine? No, it's a big visual novel. So these guys were saying, like, they came out with their game that has voice acting by Sting. Like, holy crud.
Wow.
I bet he costs more than $300 an hour.
Yes.
Right. It was voice acting by Sting, and they said it was a commercial disaster, and they had this big news post about it, and I was trying to figure out what they meant. Well, I did some research on here, and some of this research was involving using Steam Spy, which doesn't quite work anymore. As near as I can tell, they sold 4,000 units of their video game in the first 30 days. So I'm trying to figure out, well, how did they, 4,000 units? Have you ever sold 4,000 units in 30 days?
Yes.
Awesome. I've never moved 4,000 units in 30 days. Okay, mine don't move that fast. So, so for you, that's success. For this video game, I was sitting there trying to figure out how, they're selling this for $20 a pop and they move 4,000 units. How is that a failure? The nearest I could figure out, as you can see here from the chart, that after they had to pay all for distribution and per unit costs, that they were about 80 grand in the hole. But this is a video game none of you ever heard of.
No.
And this is only their first 30 days? Did they really think their video game was going to make all that money back in 30 days for a game they never heard of? That Sting didn't even tweet about it on social media? Okay, that's why I'm suggesting that what you want to be is want to be a little more responsible. Here's what I think is a better example. This is Pirate's Tale. Has anybody heard about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pirate's Tale, and I know a bit more about Pirate's Tale because I can tell they sold about 2,000 units, and then I know how much about they get charged per Steam because we've done a Steam game. And I saw their Kickstarter budget because that was public. Okay, so they moved 2,300 units in their first 30 days. So notice what we just talked about. When The Water Tastes Like Wine moved 4,000 units and said they were a failure, Pirate's Fate here has moved 2,000 units and is a success. So part of what we're trying to do with crowdfunding here, by the way, The Water Tastes Like Wine wasn't crowdfunded. Part of what we want to do is we want to judge the market first and then do it. Success is going to be making money, or at least not losing a horrible amount of money. And your per unit goal is going to be what we can expect from the audience, and that's what crowdfunding is going to be good for you. So I worry that some people think they have to be the next Secret of Mana, and they have to, or next PUBG or something like that, and sell thousands of units. That's not going to happen to you. I mean, when did your first book break 4,000? Do you know?
I don't remember. I keep spreadsheets, but I've kept them for so long that I don't remember.
Right, but you've been doing this for years, right?
Yeah.
You built up word of mouth, you've got book club, you're professional at this.
Yeah.
Did you think if you came out with a new book today, it would break 4,000 in the first 30 days?
Oh, no.
Right. So, I mean, I believe in you guys, but that's part of what I mean by having a responsible budget. I feel bad for the Water Tastes Like Wine guys because I don't know how they came up with that number. I think it's great they hired Sting, but they spent way too much money. There we go. So in other words, we're going to go ahead and figure out about how many units we're going to sell using some predictive measures. Then we can do a budget where we raise the budget just a little bit so we can have more profit. Okay, and I talked a little bit about making sure it was timely, right? Making sure you just do it. Like, how do you finish? Do you ever, when you're trying to finish your novel, you just can't finish it?
No.
You just write, it becomes easy to you?
No. But
But you force yourself to do it.
But when you do it, 20 plus times in a row, you kind of get into oh yes, it's hard and it's boring and it'll take me 3 months and then it'll be over and then I do the
Okay, so that's our advice, do it 20 times.
Yeah.
But also more realistically, I suggest people set a deadline. Like I've heard people disparage NaNoWriMo, saying just because you wrote 50,000 words in a month doesn't mean it's good. That's not the point. The point is, do something and then we know it's done. Write 50,000 words, which we can then call a novel, and then just be done with it.
Right.
pick a time frame to do something and then be done with it. And also, if you're anything, you know, like one of my favorite writer jokes is when the writer hands their manuscript to the editor and says, "I'm sorry, if I had more time, I could have made it shorter." Because you ever had that problem where you have to like,
No.
no, you're just done? Okay.
20 plus times.
Be perfect.
It's
I know-
not that, it's just practice. You do it over and over
Correct.
again.
But I know a lot of people who will dote on their books forever.
Don't do that. You can't
Don't-
make money on them that way.
Stop. Get it out. It will never be perfect. There will always be a typo on page 87.
The Hobbit has 6 typos. The Hobbit.
Just 6?
And
Just
that's-
There's 6 that I counted. That's just 6 that I counted. You know, when I got to the 6th, I'm like, hey, if it was good enough for Tolkien, it'll be good enough for the rest of us.
Yeah.
So are certain genres easier to market than others?
Yes.
Yes. That was
Yes.
easy.
Yes.
Did you need more?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I know that some of the higher level, like stuff like philosophy or like deep level literature, like that there's a certain different there's a certain group of people, like sophisticated group of people that you're kind of aiming towards, or because I know that certain genres that are more mainstream, there's certain challenges as far as marketing to different genres.
You know,
That makes sense.
I love my readers, so I'm not comfortable with them being accused of a lack of sophistication because on Saturdays they would like to read a pop adventure book. If you want to write literature and philosophy, you should be in academia
Yeah.
because that's where you're going to find success.
Right. Yes, I agree.
Well, if you, yeah, nonfiction would be a much harder sell because I don't think either of us do that.
I do nonfiction.
Start nonfiction? Okay.
Yeah. About business. Well, and parenting, yeah.
I'm more interested in your business book than your parenting book, but I'm sure they're both good. Okay. They're very good. Well, did you bring your business books? We can offer business books.
I will tomorrow at my business seminar.
Ooh, okay, let's see if I can make that. What time is that?
4?
4? God, where am I going now? I'll come back at 4. Okay. By the way, did Fighting Herds come out?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, okay, correct this. What did it come out?
I think February.
Okay, okay, because I think February. Are they still in early access or whatever?
No, it seems to be. Full.
All right, good.
Fully
I can update this. Then I can remove the question mark. Okay, these were just examples of Kickstarters that were late. Did anyone ever hear this Undertale? I heard it was good.
Yeah,
Yes.
Just a little bit. You guys sure?
It's mediocre.
Mediocre at best.
Never played.
Okay. We did talk a little bit about Book Club and about marketing. Like I said, my strategy is usually I'm trying to sell my product over a 2 to 3 year lifespan at least. Whereas I think you just read the novel and you move on to the next one and
Yes, I want the super long tail
right.
forever.
Well, the nice part is in this modern future that we live in, with print on demand and with digital libraries, nothing ever goes out of print. If you want any one of Maggie's books, you can get all of them.
Please. That would be good.
Okay, so we're in this for the long haul, but that does mean you got a stump.
You gotta stop.
Yeah, that's going around talking about it.
Oh, okay.
Old person
No,
stuff.
I don't do that very much.
Don't do that very much.
No, I buy
Well, no,
promotions.
But you buy promotions.
I buy
Okay,
promotions.
you're buying so you're buying advertising. So that's what we're making. Well, some of us go to conventions and talk about stuff. The question there.
What a good idea for kind of advertising would be like having maybe like on some kind of thing like a little like test like chapter like intro or something like to get people like interested in the book.
And do you? That's a good question.
Would that-
Do you reveal the chapters slowly, or do you reveal the whole book at once?
I don't reveal the book at all. It goes to retail and they can download a sample if they want.
But are you on Amazon Prime?
No, I left the Kindle lending library. I didn't want to be in that.
Okay, can I ask why?
Because if you're in the Kindle lending library, you have to be exclusive
I have to be exclusive.
with Amazon, and I do not want to take all my eggs out of, put them in one basket. So, and I make like a quarter of my royalties come from every other place combined, but that's still a quarter of my royalties coming from somewhere else. So,
Right. Now, but you're in the novel market where you're selling long-form fiction.
yes.
The place that Amazon Prime really shines, from what I've heard from other people, I'm not a short story writer, is that it rekindled the short story market. Is anyone here in Amazon Prime and has the Kindle lending library?
I was
Yeah.
last month.
Okay, some of you were. You may have noticed there's a lot of ridiculous stuff on Amazon Prime where it's like, this is a short story that's 2,000 words long and costs $5. Okay, and you may have looked at that saying, who buys a 2,000 word story for $5? The answer is nobody does. They're in the Kindle lending library. That they're charging $5 because they have to charge something. And what happens is because if you're in Amazon Prime, because you can check these books out for free, that boosted the short story market really huge. Because to the consumer, you're just paying a monthly fee, you might as well read everything you can. And the short story writers who write about a week or a month or everything like that got a boost because people were reading their stories. So if you're a short story writer or you're writing a long serial fiction like you're a modern day Charles Dickens or whatever, that gave them a really big boost.
But you get paid by page. So if you're writing like 62-page short stories, you're still not doing as well as when you write a novel.
Yep, you're getting paid, and they're clamping down on the page tricks.
Yeah.
And you guys ever downloaded a book and the margins are really thin and it's like every third word. Yeah, they're stopping that. You've probably seen a lot of, if you've seen the books online that are like 50 short stories, each 2,000 words each. It used to be they paid per download, so people took their 50,000 word novels and divided them up into 80 pieces.
Yeah.
Then they started paying by the page, so you started seeing all these books padded out by the page.
There are a lot of varies. It was very, 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 very.
Yeah.
Like that's what I do.
Oh, it's terrible. It really is. There's a market, but don't do that. Be
No,
responsible.
don't do that.
No, really, you're writing long form novels, and you're also an established writer where people like your first book. You can say, hey, I got another book right here. Long tail.
Very long.
I have given away free samples. A lot of times people, if it's a role-playing game, they ask, well, what does it look like? So we'll give away the first 12 to 16 pages, and we've had marketing giveaways where we've given away like 32 or 48 pages of our books. Also, if you're on our Patreon, we give away stuff. We've had some luck with giving people a first taste preview. I know a lot of webcomic artists are literally giving the book away for free, where it's 1 page a day,
Yeah.
and then you can buy the book later. And people do that to support, or because the book promises like 20 new pages or something like that. That's another good format. If you're going to try and entice readers, though, the big thing about that is being timely. Does anybody here read a webcomic? Does anybody here know your webcomic hasn't updated? You stop coming back? That's a big deal.
Yeah,
So,
don't do that.
so that can work. So different things. Try different things. I will slightly mention that I am a little disappointed in social media lately. We will tell you to get social media, tweet about your books.
No.
You don't even tweet about your books?
No.
Good, I also hate them. Well, it also doesn't work anymore because some of you may have noticed, like the YouTubers saying, you need to click on the bell, you want to hear about us. Or Facebook and Twitter posts just don't appear. You have to get a social media account. Get one for your company. Don't use your personal one because you don't want people seeing, because some of you are furries. I know what some of you are liking and retweeting. Get yourself a business social media account. Use it exclusively for a social media account. Use it to post about your stuff. And don't expect really anybody to read it because they're probably not. And it's probably going to get filtered. But you need to do it anyway. It doesn't cost a lot. And Posty Burb exists, so it makes it a lot easier. You guys know what that is?
Don't hang your hopes on it.
Yep. A question there, way in the back?
Going back a step to when you're talking about collections of short stories, what about an entry style?
An entry style?
Say a journal, for example, where it's like day one, there's 10 pages, day two, and it's like the character's thoughts and stuff.
Hey, don't you still have a
intersposed between the actual writing.
Well, people do that.
Yeah.
I was saying, would that be considered like padding out your book, or?
Well, no, if that's what the book is. If the book is told in that format, there's no reason.
Yeah, I thought you had a vanity site where you promoted the books a little bit by having the little clips. Or am I that old?
No.
Okay.
No, I have a website so that if people are like, what order do I read these in, then they can go and find a reading order, but it's not the same.
And question back there?
I was curious about the advertising that you're referring to, like who would you like? I have no artistic talent, so I figured like, if I was going to get advertisement, I don't know where to begin with just getting the actual advertisement that will go into the advertisement.
No, there's no advertisement. It's the book cover. That's it.
That's it.
You can get advertising in the book cover, and also the ads that I usually buy are Google AdWords, where I just go to Google, type in, this is my book, and then they give you keywords to pick from. And we do that, and people show up.
Yeah.
You don't even need any artistic talent for that at all. And in fact, that's even cheaper than add that as a picture. So you can either just use the book cover, because that doesn't hurt, but honestly, I just buy text ads.
Yeah, you could do that.
The only exception is Fur Affinity, which is still a surprisingly good return on advertising.
Really?
Huh?
Yeah.
We've gotten 11%, maybe 12%
Oh my gosh.
returns, and they charge like $50 a month. The hardest part's getting them to run it.
I'm sorry, what does that mean, 11% returns on an FA ad?
Yeah. Oh, that means that when people, out of the people who actually see the ad, 11% of the people actually click on it.
That's crazy.
That is unusually high.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Well, it helps that we sell furry stuff. But yeah, Fur Affinity is unusually good for advertising. Like I said, the hardest part is dealing with the ad. But yeah, so here I'm showing, this is my 3-year strategy where I mentioned that 180 days before we're about to go in, we do the crowdfunding. We then try to get our book out within 180 days. Your timeline is a lot faster than that, right?
Yes.
Because you've got the ebook which already exists, and then you hire the artist. So what is your turnaround from the crowdfunding to delivery?
Oh, less than a month.
So 30 days, which is not unheard of. In fact, that's why they started the quick starter thing. Okay, yeah, because once again, that's not the big deal. You need to get the artwork that goes on the cover. You already know how big a book is. You already proofread the thing, or people already emailed you about the typos on page 87. Okay, and so, but you see also notice the way my timetable is set up where I'm expecting to get about my hardcore 20% are gonna be my original backers, and then I've kind of spread this out. This timeline is, it gets longer, 60 days, 180 days, 360 days, 720 days. I have to hold stuff. I have a warehouse where we rent space and a distributor space. It's my understanding that Amazon will actually rent you space now, which is extremely helpful because Amazon is one of the worst partners to work with.
Really?
For physical goods. Do you know Amazon says 20% discount off our site? Like order it now, our book's 20% off retail. Yeah, you know how that works? They tell to me, hey Rafferty, you have to sell us the book at 20% lower than wholesale cost, so we can sell it 20% lower cost, or you're not on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then they make me pay to ship it to them.
Yeah.
What? Welcome to Amazon.
Yeah. How come I pay the shipping fee to Amazon if you're the one who has to do it?
I have to ship it to Amazon, then Amazon has to ship it to you.
Yeah.
The good news is Amazon is allowing people to rent warehouse space, but it's my understanding, I haven't done it, and it's also my understanding that after 5 months, it goes way up. So this timetable would be different if you were storing at Amazon. I talked to some people at the Origins trade show who were telling me Amazon does this, put it there for 5 days. But once again, this is an example timeline that we have. You've got yours where you're gonna turn around in 30 days and you don't have to store anything. I, on the other hand, like I said, I might fudge my budget a little bit. If I kickstart for 1,000 copies, I'm planning to sell 5,000 over my entire run, and I'm picking 3 years to do it. Once again, we have to pick timelines that are reasonable. I think it's perfectly reasonable if your ebook was already popular that you could go ahead and move 30 days, but no one, it took me 20 years to move 20,000 books, so.
So what exactly is this example timeline for?
This would be, I usually tell people that if you're gonna pick like a video game or a book project or something much bigger than say like a novel, or not that novels and webcomics aren't big, but something that would be tangible like this, I would expect you to plan for a 2 to 3 year turnaround. Okay. Like if you wanna be the next Undertale, more power to you. But the thing I worry about that was in the previous slide that I mentioned was where the water tastes like wine, those guys expected to make all of their money back in the first 30 days of sale. And I just thought that was ridiculous. PUBG didn't become as big as it was in the first 30 days. And because you publish the ebook and you wait to see if it's popular, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So you're testing the waters with that, but if you guys want to make a box game or something like that, when budgeting for your Kickstarter, I would say, if you plan for this, that means you're gonna rent a warehouse for 2 to 3 years where your boxes are gonna sit and you're gonna wait for them to move. You could plan for a shorter timeline, but then you might wanna make fewer units or something like that. This is a lot of guesswork, but that's why I'm cautioning people, if you are an indie publisher and no one's ever heard of you, don't expect to be Tomb Raider or PUBG in the first 30 days. More questions? Oh, okay, I guess we'll do Sue first.
Alright, so, are there advantages to, because I know usually how it would work is people would, is there advantages to working with a publisher versus,
No.
heading on your own? Or are there?
Well, you've done both, so you have strong opinions, so what do you
Yes, I
think?
do. No,
Yeah,
that's
because I'm
good.
sure there are pros and cons to both self-publishing and working with an actual publisher.
I'm
Sure, there are
sure.
pros and cons to both.
Okay, so-
What's your
None.
opinion?
Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying always go indie?
Yes,
All right, and why is that?
because it's better.
Because it's better.
Good reasoning if I ever heard it.
I'm going to offer a counterpoint, which is, well, some of the advantages of working with a publisher is, okay, let's rain on people's parade. Anne Rice fans,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this book's great, right?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Has anybody noticed the books get kind of longer, and no one has any issues with that? No? J.K. Rowling books, you guys don't think the books get too long?
Yeah, they get longer.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. The advantages of working with publishers is they may know some things about your audience that you don't. If that bothers you, you can self-publish and say whatever you want. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Dave Sim. You guys remember Dave Sim?
Yes.
Yeah. Dave Sim said whatever he wanted. But if you're independent and publishing it yourself, you can say whatever you want, and that's beautiful. Be the change you want to see in the world. If you don't want to do business, that's another problem where you hear me talking like, oh, you got to go ahead and fill out your tax forms. You guys all know how to fill out the IRS W-2 forms for yourself, right?
Yep.
And file all the taxes. To 501c3, you know how to set up one of those up. And you have to, we had to incorporate, you had to list your name and address in the Florida newspaper for 2 weeks. And you rent a P.O. box, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas I have an office. You know, these are issues. If you don't want to deal with all of that, okay, you might go ahead and get yourself a publisher and submit to them. But on the other hand, you have to submit to the publishers and they have to decide if they want to buy it. And many of them will probably, if your idea is too fringe, many of them will say no. Many of them will have terrible terms. Did anyone ever try to buy your manuscript outright, or?
No, but I've seen my share of terrible terms that I
Yeah.
said no for, yes.
Sometimes people like, anyone here a Witcher fan? Yeah, when the guy sold his rights to The Witcher, when he sold it to the video game guys, they own it forever. So they can make Witcher games forever and never pay him anything. So there are lots of bad terms. Mostly what we assume here about self-publishing is we assume you've got some sort of vision and you're willing to handle some of the business stuff yourself. Self-publishing is great. You get all the money and all the rewards, but you also get all the hassles. Good news is it's easier than it has ever been.
No, you still have hassles with publishers. You have different hassles
You
with
have different
publishers.
hassles.
And you know, if you're gonna do this for money, you shouldn't like fool yourself into thinking that you can be an artist and let someone else handle all that stuff you don't want to handle. If you're going into business for yourself, be honest about it and do the business and learn the business, because you're going to have to anyway if you decide to go with a publisher, because then how can you tell if they're cheating you? How can you tell if your audit is going to go over and actually do the stuff that needs to be done? You know, you're going to have to chase them to make sure they pay you. They could lie when they say they're going to pay you and not give you the amount that you're supposed to get, like happened with the big agency that the writer of Fight Club. Like, oh wow,
You
all
mean-
this missing. $3 million that the agents embezzled from the authors?
There's lots of shenanigans that can go on if you've got other you might
No, just say no.
We're angry self-publishers, so grr.
Grr.
Ourselves. Angry question in the back.
Okay.
Angrier.
Good job.
I want to self-publish. I have a book writing. What should I expect to do?
Okay.
That was in the question too.
Oh, okay. Was
That
that
was the. I actually have a book that I want to publish.
All right.
And if I want to go down the self-publisher route, like say if I want to do it like 2 months from now, because the book's done, I've had people read it, I've gone through it several times, and I just need cover up, and I already know who I want to commission for that.
Okay.
If I want to do that, what should I expect to need to know to do to have it be self-published at, like, say, Amazon, because you have that experience?
Okay. My first advice is go to a website that will tell you all the many choices that you have, because there's a billion things you could do. But what you
And Amazon
really,
actually has one themselves.
But what you really want, I assume you want an ebook.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
assuming ebook.
Okay, so assuming ebook, you have to be on Amazon. If you,
And then that's an account.
right, you have, well, yeah, you have to have an Amazon
Is it a
account.
regular Amazon account or is it an Advantage account?
No, it's a regular account.
Regular account, okay.
It's the same account you buy books with, so.
Okay.
You wanna go to their, what is it called? It's KDP, and I don't.
Kindle Direct Publishing.
Kindle Direct Publishing.
Kindle Direct Publishing.
I use like the acronym so much, I don't remember it. And then you just sign up for that, and then it's very simple. They're just like, oh, once you set up all your tax information, all that, it's just you upload the manuscript, you upload the cover, you set the price, you put all the blurb information, all that, and then you hit a button and off it goes. So the only thing you really need to figure out how to do is the formatting. If you've ever done HTML,
Very long time ago.
EPUB is basically HTML.
Do they do EPUBs or do they do MOBIs?
You do the EPUB first, and then you run it through their converter, which you can download. It's like, they call it the Kindle Previewer. If you just drop an EPUB in the Kindle Previewer, it will generate the Amazon MOBI for you, and you just upload that.
Can you just drop a document file, or they make you do it, they make you translate it?
No, you can put a document file, but it's ugly, so don't do that. And you'll need the EPUB anyway because everybody else uses EPUB. So when you go to Barnes & Noble and Apple and Kobo and all those other people, they want an EPUB.
The software I've been using is Calibre, Calibre, to go ahead and make, it takes a Word or OpenOffice document and it spits out a readable EPUB.
I use Sigil because I
Sigil?
like to go into the guts and mess with it because I like them to be super pretty and fancy and have graphics everywhere.
And what does
stuff like
Barnes
that.
& Noble use? They just use the EPUB?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky to do this Technoid stuff. You might be able to find somebody who will help you.
It's
but
not bad though.
Calibre and Sigil, especially if you're just a text novel, it's probably not going to be that bad. You're going to have more trouble just finding your typos, fixing those before you distill it into a digital book that they want.
Now there are like Draft to Digital, which is how I get to everybody else that's not Amazon. Draft to Digital has a thing where you drop your document, your Word document into it, and then you choose a style and it'll format it in that ebook style, and then it'll do it for you. So if you don't even want to mess with it and you want to make sure it's going to look like something specific, you can do that instead. And then you can just take that EPUB and put it in the Kindle Previewer and it'll generate your Kindle thing. So
And the
it's like,
best part about digital distribution is if you don't like the way it looks, you can fix it and re-upload it later.
don't do that often.
Don't do it too often, but if this is your first book, I would just make the book. Later, if you want to make, because you have a fancy table of contents with hyperlinks to click on to go to certain pages, right?
No, because that's gross.
It's even simpler than I thought. I bothered to put that in.
No, the EPUB, when you generate the EPUB, it will generate the metadata table of contents that the devices will use to, when you say go to and stuff.
Assuming you've used heading and formatting. You might learn as you go.
Now,
Our advice is just do it.
It's not hard. The first few times you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing and it's weird and I hate CSS style sheets and whatever. But then you do it like a few times and you have a style sheet and you just drop it in every book that comes after. And then it's done. So it's it's a process. But do not upload multiple copies over and over and over again because each time you upload a fresh corrected copy, Amazon overwrites all of the users' highlights and bookmarks in the previous edition. So if they download your new typo-free one, all their highlights and their bookmarks are gone. And so Amazon doesn't like you to do that, and the readers don't like you to do that. So try not to revise too many times, right?
Oh, okay. Well, did you have more questions? Oh, well, we got some questions in the back.
ISBN numbers, do you get them?
I do not use ISBNs for ebooks because you don't need them.
And ISBNs cost money.
Oh, that I knew, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, my company, we bought several hundred for several $1,000s because we're in the long haul.
Yeah, and a lot of people do buy their own ISBNs, and there are good reasons to do that. I don't because print is like less than 5% of my revenue.
Right.
So for me to spend lots of money on print is not a good idea.
Whereas I'm in hobby stores and bookstores, and I have to have an ISBN or they won't track it.
Right.
So you know, $50 per ISBN. But if you're starting a small press, we don't even do ISBNs on all of our books, just most of them. So, question in the back?
So say I'd rather go the direct to print, no ebook route. Is there any other hassles I could expect with that?
Direct to print, but no ebooks.
Why do you want to do that?
Okay, the first thing, yeah, I would echo this. You should do ebooks. People ask for them, and to be honest, if you're going to make a book for print, you have to make a print master. That print master, unless you're going to sit there and engrave the plates yourself, which I haven't done for 25 years, you are going to have to make a digital version of your book first, probably in PDF format at least.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to like have it published as an ebook. I want to have it published as print.
Okay, well,
Why? Let's go back to why do you not want an ebook?
It's a personal thing. I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I spent like a couple of years. I had a bad injury, and writing was kind of my way to keep myself sane through the world. And I always said one day I want to hold a copy of this book for myself.
okay, because you don't have to be exclusive. You can actually be both ebook and print at the same time.
There's no reason not
We
to.
do all of our books that way.
Yeah,
And you do the ebook first and then the print later.
yeah.
But if you still want to do that, you will have to make a digital print master. The biggest hassle I can think of is you get people asking you why it's not available in digital format. Because if we do that, people ask us what the digital is. The second thing you have to worry about is printed books. If you're just doing a novel, there's not a lot of hassles. If you're doing full color separations, that's a bigger deal. So I guess the last thing you have to worry about is make sure that you're printing your book in the size that books are actually printed, like 5x8 or 7x10. What size do your books in?
I have like a 6x9 and then a 5x8.5.
I've run into some weird things with some Canadian. Apparently, the A5 Canadian size is different from the 7x10 and 7x9, and so I've met some folks who like refuse to. Canadians just can't get their books in print in the U.S. They're doing it. I don't know. I would just trim off the extra 1/4 inch on the outside, but what do I know?
I pay a graphic designer because I don't. Laying out books is a lot of trouble, and doing it pretty is a lot of trouble. So I just hire someone to do it.
Money and time.
Yeah.
Do we have a question over here?
Yeah, just, I recall you guys talking about offering ebooks online and how they don't like it when you revise or go back and change things.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to, rather than go back and revising the old version, to just create a new version with all the revisions in it? That way the people who have the old version don't lose their highlighting and bookmarks, but if you want a version that's updated, that's clean, a bit more neat, you can download the new version.
No, because you'll confuse people because it'll be like there's 2 separate books with the same title.
Well, a lot of times, and this seems to be more the case with nonfiction than with fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but you often see newer editions of older books.
Yeah, and most of the time you upload them to the same metadata area.
Right.
You know, because they're the same book. They're just a new edition of that book.
Right.
You don't create an entirely separate metadata set. Because the other thing that happens is the metadata also gives the preserves the sales figures, the reviews, the amount, the information about people who have bought it, the sales. It records the purchases so that people who want it can re-download it. And if you separate them, then you have separated those important things that should be together. Because otherwise, then you'll have separate reviews for 2 separate editions, and then separate sales data so that people are like, oh, this book is not successful because it's only had 50 purchases, when in fact the first edition had like 50,000, and they're not together. So
That's a good point.
it's you got to stick the metadata together. So
Right.
it bites, but it's a technical
It is what it
thing.
is, yeah.
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 Exactly that. Okay. So I had a lot of slides in here that were exact budget breakdowns, but since we're starting to run low a little on time, and I'm sure you guys love talking about economics.
Can you go back a slide though, because I was totally taking notes on that.
Oh, well, actually, I'm going to have a link up here in a moment.
Okay,
So.
excellent.
Okay. Okay. Right. So once again, as I was promise everyone, not only do you have to get all the money, but you should also deliver. We believe in you. Do your best. We believe you always get the quality. Lawyers, have you ever had an issue with legal issues? Oh, that's right. Now, I believe, long story short, didn't you get, was it the Electronic Frontier Fund?
Yes.
Yes. You had a problem.
Yeah, well, what's the topic? I mean, why are we talking about lawyers?
Okay. The reason why, well, because I've had people approach me about legal issues too. Like, you say, hey, I thought about making a furry role-playing game before. You stole my idea. Okay? You had a trademark violation, which was a bigger deal.
A fake trademark.
Alleged trademark
Yes.
violation.
Alleged
You
trademark
won that. You're mightier than James Cameron. Now you successfully won the right to use Space Marine.
That's right. Well,
I've had people call me up. If you don't have the support of the Electronic Frontier Foundation,
right.
who are awesome, I have a lawyer's business card. If anyone ever calls me, this doesn't happen as much as it used to. It used to get cranks who would just call you out of the blue and say you stole my idea. I just had a lawyer's address. I said, this is my lawyer, and then you block the person. You say, this is my lawyer contact information, you block. You don't even have to have a retainer with the lawyer because they never call the lawyer.
No.
And if they did call the lawyer and said, you know, Rafferty said you were a representation, that lawyer would then contact me and tell me I said that.
I do have a lawyer. He helps me with contracts.
You could also get a lawyer.
Right.
Is your lawyer on retainer?
Good Lord, no. I cannot afford his retainer.
And you've done enough business by now that, like with 14 books, that you can have a lawyer.
Yeah.
I have a business manager. I don't actually have a corporate lawyer. But my advice is just hold on to that in case anyone gives you any hassles. Also, there is the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the American Civil Liberties Union who will help you with some stuff. We also mentioned ask for more money than you need just in case something horrible happens. I recommend having an emergency fund. It could just be a credit card. You might have the problem where a bunch of books don't show up or your garage catches on fire, something. So I know some people were taking notes. These are some of the people we mentioned. We already mentioned Amazon, BackerKit. Intuit are the guys who make Quicken, which is business software, so if you hate doing business. For print-on-demand stuff, have you worked with Print Ninja? I've worked with Print Ninja.
No.
Yeah, I've worked with Lulu, Lightning Source, and Print Ninja. I don't have on the list here CreateSpace, which is who you've worked with,
Yeah.
CreateSpace.com or Amazon.com. BookBub I have to add to this list.
Draft to digital.
Draft to Digital, also another one. See, I learned new things today. If you're thinking about making a box game, thegamecrafter.com will let you do print-on-demand games. They won't be as nice and as fancy as ones you make yourself, but you can at least prototype. And
Oh,
at least
and
get some
ACS.
prototypes out. ACS?
ACX is self-pub audiobooks.
ACS for self-pub audiobooks. I've got to follow up with you to add more stuff to this. I'm also recommending e-myth.com. That is a great website where they talk about the e-myth or the entrepreneur myth. The idea was the easy part. The nice part about e-myth is they have a lot of resources to help motivate you because as we just said, it's like you got to have a little business savvy. We know it's not easy, but I was a member of, I went to the e-myth seminar 20 years ago and it made me the man I am today. So if you need a little help.
I wrote a business book.
And you wrote a business book.
I did.
We should have run a copy for one. Okay.
You wrote a Kickstarter book, didn't you?
I did write a Kickstarter book too.
Yeah, definitely we gotta add these to the list. I didn't know you did a Kickstarter book. You didn't tell me you did that.
Oh,
From
I'm
start
sorry.
to finish.
It just occurred to me.
Go read Maggie's books.
There you
Oh,
go.
what's your website?
I have business cards.
We're passing out business cards. I left my business cards over there on that table, so let me go get them. Also on our website, we will have more links and stuff. The budget, I have a Google worksheet to help people do a budgeting for a project, and we have a sample work for a hire contract that you can read through. We're not lawyers, I have to say that, but this is the contract that we use. It's got lots of annotations in it to explain why we have certain clauses. Our stuff isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. And we're going to go ahead and pass out some business cards because I know we've only got about 10 more minutes.
10 minutes.
I left my business cards over here. And I have my table
Questions? Any other
We have more
questions?
questions.
Okay, but are you the only question? Go for it.
So I noticed you guys have a slide there listing websites for companies that specialize in self-publishing. If I'm looking to go, like, because I want my books available in both online and in physical physical print.
Uh-huh.
Which of those companies do you think would be best for that?
You want ebooks and
Both, yeah.
And
Because most authors nowadays do want their books in both forms.
you need Amazon. I hate to say it, but they're like the 600-pound gorilla that you can't get away from.
And
what was the other one? Draft to digital?
Draft to digital.
Right, because I imagine most small indie authors, they don't have all the equipment to like print and bind and everything,
No.
so they have to contract out third parties to do all that.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't get involved with that. It's too much work.
Right, because imagine the machines you need to do that, and probably aren't cheap.
No.
My local library actually prints books on demand. It's great.
Do they have an espresso?
It was the big giant machine that prints the black and white books.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Those are cool.
The most print on demands are done by a specific HP printer that is 38% sublimation. Who wants to talk about sublimation?
We have 5 minutes left.
We have 5 minutes. Okay, it turns out they left the business cards on my table, so I'm at table F17. So come on down. More than happy to talk about this. And did the barcode actually work as a link?
Any other
People still
questions?
use these things?
Yeah.
Well, there's mine.
The AC registration team actually used one.
Okay, I didn't think they had QR code readers anymore.
Do we have any final questions? Go ahead.
The company I work for, Texas Southern Entertainment, just recently got a fan becoming an investor. He does oil rig stuff. More money, really. He wants us to change our business from having products inside like game stores to just selling stuff at conventions.
Okay,
Okay.
you want us to tell you it's a bad idea or a terrible idea?
Is that a good or a bad idea? What's your opinion?
Terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea because by definition, you would only be able to sell to people who came to the con, brought the money, were actually going to buy it, and didn't just want to go buy it from Amazon later.
This is an important principle for every business, which is you capture sales from people who are intending to buy something. They go out to buy it. People don't necessarily come to conventions to buy games, but they go to a game store to buy games. So those are your market. That's the people who want to buy a game, and they've gone there specifically for that purpose.
And they get hyperlinks. If somebody wants to buy a game, they went to Board Game Geek and someone said, hey, here's a game, here's their website, here's a link, and then they will order. You cannot make it too easy for people to buy your stuff.
No, you really can't.
Yeah, because Amazon paid literally millions of dollars for one-click technology because 2 clicks was too much.
I just want to know if you're going to have these slides available anywhere to review.
They're actually at this link.
Oh, is that like, okay.
Yeah, if we have them all stored in a Google Drive. So I think the slideshow that's uploaded is slightly out of date from this one, and I've got a lot more links to put on this based on what we talked about today. These are all living documents. So, but we have the PowerPoint, all those pie charts that I sped through really quickly. Those are up there, and we have a contract work for hire. And I've got even more links from some people I couldn't remember because, like, some people on LinkedIn had some really good advice. Believe it or not. So.
Yeah, LinkedIn, wow.
Yeah, LinkedIn, still using it.
All right.
Boy, is my beard gray. And those are your business cards?
Yes.
So we got business cards?
We have business cards. I have business cards.
Yeah, my business cards, they left